I would like to start by first refuting some of Andrew's claims, and then I will move on to Natalie's claims, and if there's still time, I will bring up some more things about global warming. First, Andrew stated that privatization is less expensive in the long run. However, I would like to point out that startup costs for privatization of any field is very expensive. For example, as Paul Lockhart from Privatization Pros and Cons has pointed out, privatization of any field will most likely have startup and transition costs, as seen by the transition to privatizing Social Security. In order to privatize Social Security, there will be around $100 to $200 billion in transition costs. That does not help our current economy and our situation. And secondly, they stated that privatization is more relevant because we will not have to rely on the government in the long run. However, we will have to rely on them and their federal funding. It will be necessary to continue privatization, and privatization would be a really risky business. Andy Pastor wrote SpaceX Illustrates Privatization Risk, and from that he stated, Mr. Musk, the starter of SpaceX, stated he could provide reliable crew escape hardware for less than $350 million. This was ridiculed for being too low. In retrospect, they will need $1 billion to create an emergency escape system. So by doing privatization with SpaceX, it's very risky because they don't even know the cost that they need at the moment. So we would be putting our money into a company that is unclear about what they need. So we would be putting our money in there, and we wouldn't know if anything's really going to come out of it or if it's just going to be a flop. And secondly, Kathleen Allen wrote Privatization of Space, not as easy as it looks. And she said, it is not known whether or not these private companies can even survive without government funding or contracts. Therefore, we are not saving money through privatization. Rather, we are increasing our risk by possibly having to spend more to fund them in their financial struggles and harming the enhancement of space exploration. So even though, as Andrew and Natalie stated, we would be funding them for the beginning, and then after that they would be funding themselves, the private companies, we don't even know if that can happen at this point. So with our current economy, to go and do that with the risk of SpaceX would just not be a realistic idea. I would also like to point out that they brought up the space shuttle, saying that it will, and how we have to close it. And I would like to point out that Kathleen Allen from Privatization of Space, it's not as easy as it looks, stated, with the end of the shuttle, it is estimated that 7,000 jobs will be lost in Florida. Private launches are estimated to replace only 1,000 of these jobs. So we are doing, the main reason for privatization would be that it would help our economy and it would help space exploration. But by looking at this, 7,000 jobs being lost and only 1,000 being gained, that really will not help our economy at all, and therefore it's not a good idea. I would also like to point out that manned space exploration has kind of died down. The current focus now is on robots, and robots have actually been doing very well. So instead of increasing federal funding for manned space exploration, we should just stay how we are with our current focus on robots. Nicholas Levington, who wrote Robots in Space, says, robots have come back with more research than men have. For example, Mariner 4 took the first close-up photos of Mars. The Viking landers also took photos and scientific data of Mars from above the planet. Spirit and Opportunity are on Mars, currently past their expected mission lifetime, and Venera 7 was the first vehicle to successfully land on Venus and transmit data back to Earth. Natalie pointed out that it takes a while for robots and unmanned exploration to transmit data, but obviously through Venera 7's ability to land there and immediately transmit data back to Earth, this can happen and robots are beneficial. And the fact that Spirit and Opportunity are on Mars currently past their expected mission lifetime is a big benefit when compared to manned space exploration. because manned space exploration has a lot of health risks and things, and because of that, they cannot stay out on trips longer. And robots obviously do not have health risks, so they can go for longer periods and get more information than manned space exploration. And lastly, I would like to point out the current problems with global warming. In Global Warming by the Numbers, in the Environmental Defense website, it is said, there has been a 100% increase in intensity and duration of hurricanes and tropical storms since the 1970s. It is estimated that $100 billion worth of damages has been caused by hurricanes hitting the U.S. in 2005 alone, and 0 bills have been passed by Congress to cut global warming pollution. Since so much money has been, since it is estimated that $100 billion have been caused in damage, why would we increase federal funding for manned space exploration when our current system with robots is working fine and we can use that money to help with global warming and solve problems here on Earth before we focus on problems outside of our planet? And lastly, I would like to point out that manned space exploration with privatization has the wrong priorities. Kathleen Allen from Privatization of Space, It's Not as Easy as It Looks, states, those companies involved in the privatization of manned space exploration fall into categories of suborbital space tourism and extended stays with space hotels and entertainment. These reasons for manned space travel do not match the priorities for gain knowledge and research about space that manned space exploration should have. So because of this, we will be moving away from our current reasons for exploring space and moving just towards tourism, which will not really help us with science at all. So for those reasons, we should not increase our